Hi, it's Stephen Leipzig with the Pressure King here, Middle Tennessee's premier pressure washing company. Here we have our 2000 Ford E250 Eco line. It has the 5.4 liter engine. We've got a bad thermostat on this, so we'll be showing you how to take apart the engine so we can get to the thermostat, which is right down in there. Off of the top coolant hose, going into the engine block. It'll be inside the engine block there. Things you'll be needing for this repair: a screwdriver for removing the hose, also for prying, 8mm socket to take out the nuts, some kind of pliers, either one of these would work, to take the clamp off for the hose, some gloves, just a good idea. Here's the thermostat itself and some gasket sealer. This is going to be a $14 repair for us, fairly cheap. The gasket sealer, the instructions for this specific repair told us not to use the gasket that came with the thermostat, and so instead we'll be using gasket sealer. I'll show you how that'll work. Here's the thermostat itself. Went to AutoZone and picked it all up. Very cheap. Easy to do, shouldn't be too long to repair at all. Thermostats are extremely important, and it's a small little mechanism, but it is a major part of the coolant system, so you definitely want to take care of it. Let's get to it. To get to it, it looks like we'll be removing the air intake here, which is as simple as taking these bolts off here, releasing this latch, unscrewing this tensioner here, pulling that off, and pulling this out, and then we'll be right to it, and then there we can take off the upper hose and get to the thermostat. Doesn't look like too much. I'll get this top part off here, and then I'll update with what we've got. Here what we've done is we've lipped the latch here, which releases this mechanism. This you can pull out the air intake here. Just slides right out there. There's your air filter. So if you do need to replace that air filter or clean it, that's how you do so. So now that we've got that off, we've got 4 bolts in our way to continue. Got an 8mm socket here. We have 2 there. We have 2 there. We'll be pulling out this, and then we'll be going here to pull off this gasket right here, this rubber hose. Let me go ahead and do that. I've taken off the 4 screws here and here. Went ahead and released this. I use my same 8mm socket on it, but you can also use a flathead screwdriver, and then I simply pried it off of there. So now this piece lifts right out of here. We've got a little sensor here that we need to disconnect. Now keep in mind this piece is optional. Even with it in, you are able to get at that upper hose there, but for the sake of having enough space, I went ahead and took it out. I'm just going to go ahead and disconnect this sensor, and then I'll grab the tools necessary to start working on the upper hose here. Again, the thermostat's going to be right there, right next to the alternator. We also did the alternator on this truck here. That wasn't too bad of a repair. It's very available and open. If you are interested in seeing a video on that, let us know. Now that we've got everything out of the way, we just got to pull off this hose clamp and get the upper radiator hose up in the air, and then we can get to the thermostat, which is that metal piece there. So we've got some channel locks here, and we're just going to pinch it like that, pry it up, pull off the hose, and then put the hose up so we're not leaking any coolant. We have the universal coolants in here, so it's expensive stuff. We don't have the universal coolant in here, so it's expensive stuff. Don't want to waste any. At the end, we'll just top it off with maybe a glass of water or something to fill it up. So that's where we're at. The hose is now off. We leaked a little bit, but not too much. We'll just top it off with some water. So we prop the hose up here, so no more coolant's leaking out. Now here's what we've got to work with. Here's where the hose fits over. We'll have to verify that that clamp is on there really good the second time. It's lipped here so that the clamp needs to go past that lip. It's very, very important. You don't want leaks here. We dripped some coolant down there, which isn't good, but it's okay. We've got to go for these 2 bolts here, one on each side, and we'll pull off this headpiece. Looks like we also got one up here. We pull off this headpiece, and the thermostat should be right there. So this is the last step before the coolant gets to the engine, and this is regulating how the thermostat opens and closes depending on how hot it gets. And so that way it can let more coolant in to cool the engine or less coolant to warm the engine. So this is a very important piece, and the repair is not so bad. So I'll go ahead and pull these bolts off here. We'll lift this out and we'll look at the old thermostat, and then we'll work on getting the new one in there. Well, we got it off. It's a 10mm bolt on each side, just 2 of them. We encountered a small problem when pulling this out that I didn't consider. It would be best to put the car on a hill so that the hood is like that. That way the coolant would be up in the radiator. Whenever I pulled this off, what happened was any coolant that's in the radiator that's above that mark drained out. So we lost a fair amount of coolant here. So we'll have to go run to the store and pick up some of that expensive coolant after all. Good to keep in mind for when you're doing this repair yourself. But there's the thermostat in all its glory. Right there, this little piece right here is what all the fuss is about. I'll show you how it works, play with it a little bit, show you how it works and compare it to the new one. And then we'll go ahead and finish up the repair. Well, here's the old one and here's the new one. You can see that the spring in the new one is better, and so you can almost see a little bit of a distance less. This one's not sealing as well and not doing its job as well just because it's old. Hasn't been performing well. So the whole idea of it is this plunger right here, as the coil or the spring heats and cools, this plunger goes up and down, that one right there. And so when the hot coolant's coming in up the top here, this is regulating it. This is all mechanical, so there's no electronics to this. And that's the thing about it, is since it is mechanical, you know, it's going to wear out over time. It's just how it is. So then compared to the new one, this one's going to be a lot tighter. This is going to be a harder spring to deal with. Yep, the spring's in better shape. It's newer. Everything looks better about this. So this last one was just sitting in there right on top, just like this. Very easy to do. This is how you replace the thermostat. You pull the old one out, plop it right in there. That's it. Done. Now, remember that sealant that we got earlier. Looks like the seal on this one. We'll go ahead and replace that seal too with that new seal we got. Remember the sealant that we got earlier, that gasket sealer? We're going to want to put that right around here. That's going to create a good liquid seal, because again, this needs to be waterproof going in and out. And that will conclude the thermostat repair. We'll go ahead and throw this back together, put everything back together, and show you step-by-step piecing it back together, but that'll do it. That's putting your new thermostat in there. Alright, we've got it screwed down there. Notice how it's flush there. We just dropped the gasket in there and then tightened it all down. So that seems to be a good fit. Now we're going to throw back on the hose and squeeze the hose a little bit and see if that little bit of pressure will show a leak. Otherwise we need to tighten it down more. Hey guys, just posting here real quick. One thing that the video seemed to miss was me putting back on that upper radiator hose. Now that is extremely important to do so. Make sure you do get the hose all the way over the lip there, and that the clamp is past the lip as well. You'll want to make sure that's on there nice and securely and evenly. Try to get the same exact imprint that the clamp was on there before. You can kind of notice on the rubber hose, it'll be clamped in there. Make sure the engine looks exactly like this before you start it up. That's your air filter right there, so the engine will be starved of oxygen if you don't have this on there properly. So piece it all back together just like we took it apart, and give it a fire and see how it runs. Good luck. Alright, we've got this next piece on there. Remember the sensor in the back that we unplugged? We'll want to put that back together. With your screws, you want to hand tighten as much as possible, and then we'll be taking the 8mm socket to all 4 of them here. Don't want to strip the threads out on them though, so you want to make sure they're lined up correctly. Now, on this 5.4 liter 2000 Ford E250 engine, there is no radiator cap that we can go to fill from. So we went over here to the reservoir tank. We just put in 3 pitchers worth of water. We're not seeing any leaks down below yet, but the real test is going to be when we start it up and let it run for a bit. Because again, it's a heated enclosed system, so as the heat builds, so will the pressure, and any leaks will be evident. I'm just putting on the last piece here with the air filter. Get that air filter in there. Then just put it on there. Put this clamp down. Make sure it's tucked in down here. That's it. That'll conclude the repair, and now we're just going to some diagnostics to make sure that we didn't miss anything. The thermostat in. Now the test is to get the car up to operating temperature, which typically is about the halfway point between the cool and the hot. At operating temperature, which is the ideal temperature for the engine, we should be able to see any leaks if there are any. Now if we go over here to the thermostat directly where it is, we can look at the seal around it and it seems good. We're not seeing any leaks. So that tells us that it's probably good there, but you also run the risk of leaking around the hose too. Everything looks good there though. Very important to do is check your coolant levels. You can drive for a while. Keep your eye on that gauge, of course. You do not want to overheat your engine, but check your coolant level wherever you get to when you arrive. But never mess with the coolant system when it's hot. It's under pressure. You pull this cap off, it'll shoot in your face. We see water dripping underneath, but that could be from all the things we spilled. We're going to give it some time, let it get up to operating temperature, and then keep checking it. We'll see if there are any noticeable leaks. Otherwise, job well done.